To start out, we'll explore essential colored pencil techniques that will help you create textures and values that you'll use in many other future compositions. In order to focus solely on texture in this class, you need to already have some experience rendering form. If you need a refresher, be sure to check out these other Craftsy classes: Drawing Essentials, Rendering Form, and 10 Essential Techniques for Better Drawing. I'll be using a variety of reference images throughout each lesson, and I've selected 2 large pieces that represent a lot of the textures we'll be using. If you wish to do studies from the same images, these 2 reference works can be found in your class materials section. Aside from those, I encourage you to find your own reference images that suit your needs for the other textures that you choose to study. In this lesson, you'll learn the best practices for burnishing and pressure, how to apply these techniques to create shiny and dull textures, and how to identify highlights, midtones, and shadows. Highlights, midtones, and shadows are in everything that we draw. So this lesson will examine how those are conveyed in drawings and paintings. I say those terms, drawings and paintings, because in our world, we are using a lot of layers and creating a painterly look. Very similar to the pastel world, where they're using a dry medium as well to create beautiful, rich artworks. So we're talking drawings and paintings, and I'll use those words interchangeably. Lighting also plays a role in how we create textures. The light source determines how our subject looks. If you take a look at this cherry still life right here, you'll see that the light source is in the upper right corner. It's coming down very brightly on these cherries so that the forms are actually created. The dark shadows on the left-hand side will represent our darkest values. The midtones are what the cherry color actually looks like, and that's somewhere in the middle. And then you see the bright highlights on the right side. During this class, I'm going to show you how to create those values, the darks, the midtones, and the highlights. Now that you understand how lighting affects texture, let's talk about the importance of your pencil pressure. There are 5 different strokes that I use when I'm laying down color. The first stroke is whisper stroke, and I learned this from Ann Kohlberg. She teaches us how to get our pencils going on paper here, and this is a very soft, light stroke. And the second stroke, which would be number 2, is called slight stroke, and that's a little bit more pressure. You can see that right here. The third stroke is how you write. It's your handwriting stroke. And that's where I usually land when I'm drawing and laying color down. It's that 3 pressure, that handwriting pressure. Firm pressure is just a little bit more. I actually come down with my fingers a little bit closer to the tip so that the tip doesn't break on me. And then the 5th stroke is shouting strokes. So we start with whisper strokes and we end with shouting strokes. And this is where you're flattening the tooth of the paper. You're really pressing hard, and you're getting that sleek, painterly finish. So let's talk about color selection. I've covered that in my other class, Vivid Flowers and Colored Pencil, and it's a little bit of a process where you're matching colors from the photo to the colors that you select from your pencils. But it's a fun process, and if you look at the class and take a look at some of my books, you'll understand how to do that. I pretty much use Prismacolor pencils. They're a wax-based pencil. I love them because when you lay down color, it's very buttery, it's very creamy. They're quite smooth when they blend, but there are other excellent colored pencils out there. There's a woman, an excellent artist named Karen Hull, who has done a color conversion chart that takes one color, one pencil's color, and she matches it to 3 other brands. It's very helpful, and you'll find it in my class materials list. Burnishing is a technique I use to create a painted look. It involves firm pressure and small strokes. Let me show you how to burnish with 3 different types of pencils. I have 3 swatches here. Each swatch has been layered with the first layer being ultramarine, the second one is Copenhagen blue, and the third layer is ultramarine again. So I'm going to take ultramarine and burnish half of this swatch. And this is where you're just taking the last color you've used for your project and layering it down, depressing all of the paper tooth, flattening it, And that's your final pencil color. It gives you a nice shine and it gives you a nice burnished look. That's one option. The second option is to use a colorless blender. Colorless blenders are simply wax, a colorless wax inside, that are meant to take those colors and just melt them, marry them, blend them together. And it will lighten it somewhat, but it's very effective, and I will use this when I'm doing dark colors. When I've done horses, dark leaves, sometimes even dark backgrounds. I do like it. So you can see how this is being depressed and flattened and looking very nice. But I've saved the third one for last because this is my very favorite burnishing technique pencil, and it's the white pencil. And I call it the magic pencil because it does wonderful things. And I'm starting at the bottom here on this last swatch. I'm pressing hard. Don't use a super sharp point because it will probably break. And if it does, I actually hope that it does during this, because I want to show you that even an angled point is great for burnishing. But it's not going to oblige me and break this time, so you'll get to see what is happening here as I do burnish this. We have a little bit of a white look as the 3 layers of color underneath are just being blended together. The pressure that I'm using, the small strokes I'm using, all of that is almost heating up the wax in these layers and giving me this really juicy look that I love. And this to me looks more like a painting than the other 2 burnished layers. So now that I've brought it up to this color, which you can see is lighter, I will restore some color with the last pencil that I used, which is my ultramarine. And with 3 pressure, I'll go over that. And it's just so sleek. The surface is so soft and smooth. And this now looks like a painting. This is what I want, and I've developed those layers underneath. So you know you're done when you're happy with the final result, or the paper won't take any more color. But you'll feel when it's finished. So it's a good idea to do swatches ahead of time so you know before you start. But if you do get in that situation where your color is not laying down anymore, your paper won't receive any more color, there are a couple options that I have found that you can do. You can turn the paper sideways and you can apply color with a sharp point in a different direction. I promise you it will take that last layer of color. This is especially good when you're working with black. And another sort of a last desperate, last hope measure is to take a can of workable fixative, hold it 6 inches away from what you're working on, spray it, give it a few minutes to dry, and then put a last layer of color on. It receives it, it sticks to it, and it's a beautiful thing that we have something to rescue our work with. Let's think about shine for a moment. Shine clues us in about our light source and the type of surface we're creating. To create believable shine, we don't want lines. I use firm pressure and small elliptical strokes. Some examples found in nature include shiny leaves, smooth flower petals, and sleek exteriors on fruits and vegetables. I'm going to show you how to create shine on this cherry. In the interest of time, it won't be a fully finished one, but I'll give you all the steps to create shine on your own work. So on this cherry, I have a few layers of color already. I'm using Tuscan red and I'm using crimson red, and then I will be burnishing those colors into the highlight with my white pencil. To start, I'm going to add a little bit more red around here, and the reason for that is because it's going to give me some wax to play with, a little bit more wax to move around and to pull into that white area. It's a fairly large white area, so it's just going to take a little bit of time to get it down there. Okay, there we go. And if you notice in the photo, the reflection isn't perfectly white. The reflection has some pink in it. I am going to bring you to the white stage with a little bit of red coming in from the edges, but you may choose to make it more photorealistic. And in doing so, grab your lightest pink pencil, add a little pink to it, and then burnish that with white. So let's get started. There are a few markings in here that I'm going to block in. These are just within the reflection. Some object is casting little mini shadows onto this, and we'll put that in here for the sake of realism. And it really doesn't need to be perfect because nobody is going to see your reference photo. They're just going to see that it's believable shine. Okay. So now I've got these colors blocked in, taking my white pencil, and I'm going to start dragging color from the red borders into the white highlight. Firm pressure, small elliptical strokes, and I'm morphing that into the white highlight. Do you see how this is just going inside the boundaries here? Use my hand to anchor it. Stretching these little dark sections into the highlight. And you can see how the pressure of these strokes, these little strokes, the pressure of this pencil over the existing layers is making the wax look nice, painted, burnished, smooth, sleek, all those wonderful adjectives that I use with a painting of colored pencil. Okay, so now we've got the edges done. Now we're going to get a little braver and pull more color inside. I use my drafting brush to sweep the crumbs away. You'll find that you'll need to do that often. Otherwise, the crumbs will stick onto your paper and sometimes become embedded in the paper. That's never a good thing. But what you can do to get those crumbs off is to sharpen your white point and then nudge them off with the tip. Blending down these interesting looking marks within the highlight, blurring them. And I look at the photo reference and I say, those marks are actually much darker and they're a little bit more connected. So I'll take my Tuscan Red. This is a beautiful pencil. Tuscan Red I will use in developing my backgrounds because it's great for shadows, it's great for dark backgrounds. It's a pencil I reach for when I want to add shadows to red colors. Okay, with this Tuscan Red I'm going to border this a little bit more. So I'm going to pull in some darkness into the existing blended wax. Connect that and get back to burnishing. Now I feel that I have a little bit more color over here in this highlight, so I'm actually going to get a little crazy here and add some red so that the right side of the highlight will be more pronounced. This is just a decision I'm making and not being perfect with the photograph, but that's okay. I want there to be a smaller defined area of that highlight. Okay, heading back to the borders, the boundaries, pushing hard, small elliptical strokes with this white pencil, blending, blending, blending into that white highlight. The thing I love about the Prismacolor pencils, because they are wax-based, is that you can actually push the wax around. It almost does feel like you're painting. You get quite a few layers on there, and those wax layers respond really nicely to pressure on your pencils, and they'll just move where you tell them to. The thing I don't always love about these pencils is that because the wax is so soft, the points do tend to break. And that can be a little jarring when it's real quiet in your room and all of a sudden a point breaks. Now I'm going to reclaim that white area over here. Again, the magic pencil comes through for me. So I'm pressing really hard, reclaiming a little bit of white, adding a little bit more Tuscan Red to deepen that. Now I could spend an hour on this. I don't expect you to, but I could spend an hour on this trying to get it to be photorealistic, and that does tend to be a challenge, I think, for most artists. The essence of what I'm trying to show you is that I'm blending and blurring the outlines of the red into the highlight so that it has a shiny look. Here's the finished demo of the cherry. You see that I have brought more color in. You'll see that there is a little bit of pink showing. I've developed the Tuscan red around here, and the rest of the cherry has been finished as well. What we have is an overall highlight effect. You'll see the dark shadows here. You'll see the midtones right here. And you'll just see how everything is blended seamlessly so that we see a highlight, but we don't see any harsh lines around it. Let's talk about dull textures and diffuse lighting. I use the same burnishing technique, I just dim the highlights. For instance, before grapes are cleaned up to sell at the market, they're dusty and dull. We want to convey that surface. I'll show you the steps using a grape from the completed still life in your class materials. I've started with this grape. I've got a few layers on here that include denim blue, black grape, indigo blue, and black. But I'm just going to show you how to burnish right around this little highlight and take it down a few notches so it doesn't convey extreme shine. So here I go. Once again, I'm blending and burnishing. I'm pushing that wax together. Those layers are becoming married together, the blues and the purples, and just a lovely color. I'm not going into the center just yet because that would be suicide on this, but I'm just moving the borders in, scooching them into the center, making it more and more realistic. And now we've got that surface that we want. Getting rid of the pencil debris. Okay, I look at this finished grape and I see that there's no bright shine. Now we're going to do that. Pulling the wax in from the borders, we're covering that white surface in with those small elliptical strokes. And we're just taking down that white, causing it to get bluer and bluer, dimmer and dimmer. Let's just say that you haven't put enough layers on there to really maximize the wax. What can you do about that? Well, you can add more color. So let's add more color. Let's add a little bit of denim blue over that swatch. Not much, because we don't want it to be too dark. Bring back our white pencil, and at this point it's a blunt point. Okay, and now I'm pressing hard, going back and forth. And as you can see, the value has changed from a bright highlight now to actually more of a mid-tone. And you can see from the finished grape that that's really exactly what we want. Now you know how to burnish and recreate shiny and dull surfaces. The next step is to practice. So for your homework, select 2 images from a photo or a magazine, one with shine and one with dim highlights. Render each one with the techniques you learned in this lesson. Coming up next, creating dimples, dents, and other imperfections for realistic fruit.